Welcome back to another episode of Do It with Jason. My name is Jason, and this is my new solar system. Alright, today we're going to go over my new solar system. As you can see here, a lot of stuff has changed. I'm going to try to keep this video somewhat short, but be able to go through a lot of detail to kind of show you guys exactly what I did and how my system's currently working and what it's going to evolve into in the future. So first, let's discuss the main unit. So this is the LV6048. I'll put the link in the description below. This is an all-in-one battery backup and solar unit. So this is a 6,000 watt unit that runs off a 48 volt battery system. It has two solar controllers, so I can have two different solar arrays up to 4,000 watts each going into this. And the output for this inverter is 240 volt split phase that's going to the sub panel right above me. So what's really cool about this unit is you technically don't have to have a solar array for this. If you want just a battery backup for your house for certain emergency circuits that are in your panel, you can just get this unit and put one battery, however many batteries you want with it, and this will run as grid as the primary, and as soon as the grid loses power, it'll switch to the battery and power whatever loads you need for it. However, the way I have it set up is I have it primary from solar, secondary battery, and then tertiary will be the grid. The solar panels charge the battery bank, and then if for some reason the battery gets to a low state of charge that you can all program and set in here, it'll switch to the grid power. So ideally, I'm going to build a system with a big enough battery bank to where this will never have to go on the grid, and it'll only be charged with the solar panels. So let's look at the inputs for this thing. First, we have the solar panels. As you can see right up here, I have two breakers inside. Each one of these breakers has the positive and negative for each solar array that I have outside. I'm not going to go through my solar panels right now. Those are going to change in the next few months, but it's basically about 1,000 watts per array. One of them is about 1,100 watts, and that one's my main solar array. I have videos in the past on that one, and then I have a secondary array that I use for testing different manufacturers and different distributors' solar panels to see which ones work well, really trying to find the best value out there. So right now I have both those coming in, and because I have a breaker box here, if I want to test just the second solar array that has the test panels, I can turn off the primary, run just the secondary through this, and I can see the actual power that's being generated from those test panels, or I can turn everything on and have all the power going through this one unit. The other input I have here is the grid power. So this cable down here is a 6.4 SO cable. So what that basically is there's 4 6-gauge wires inside of one insulated, nice clean install wire. So now that I have the solar input and the grid power input, we can talk about my output. So this has two separate outputs. It has your DC output and it has your AC output. The DC output, like I had said before, is a 48 volt system, and that is going to my battery bank. I'll show you that in a few minutes. The other output is the AC output, and that's 240 volt split phase, so you have L1 and L2 that are running at 120 volts. The AC output does have 4 terminal connections, so you have your ground, your neutral, your L1, and your L2. So I'm using that same 6.4 SO wire. So I have that going directly to the sub panel. All my loads are wired right into there with their individual breakers. Now for the battery bank, I decided to go something a little bit nicer than my original plan was. And as you can see, I went with a server rack system. I also got an enclosed box. So there is a mesh material on the front and the back, so you get plenty of airflow through it. But it's also locked and secure. If you have other people or kids in your household, that no one's going to accidentally get into this and potentially hurt themselves. I also put some color LEDs around it because it's just something that I like to do. So you can see, you can just push this button, open up the door, and as you can see here, it's obviously a solid steel mesh. So right now I only have one server rack battery. What's really cool about this system is I have everything up and running, but I didn't have to buy a complete rack full of batteries in order to get this running. So I'm running the EG4 batteries. The cheaper of the two, you can get a Pro Model 1 that has a display screen on it and a few other little communication ports. So I currently have one of those. These racks are really nice because they have bus bars on each side. So when you have multiple batteries in there, you get a pretty even discharge and charge rate between all the different batteries that are in there. Then I don't know if I mentioned before, but this rack is a 6-rack system. So right now I have one 100 amp hour battery, and I can of course add even one at a time, two at a time, whatever, until I get the 6 batteries into here. I don't remember exactly how many of these batteries you can have in parallel, but I believe it's quite a lot. You can check out the data sheet below. I'll have the link to these batteries as well. There's plenty of good reviews out there. I'm not going to review the battery. And the only other parts of this system that is a little different is I had to change the 12-volt system. If you remember from some of my old videos, I am running some 12-volt lighting, like the lighting that is on right now, and a couple other accessories throughout. So I needed a 48-volt to 12-volt, basically DC to DC converter that goes up to a fuse panel. So all that stuff is actually wedged back in here. I got plenty of space in there to actually work on it, but there's a 30 amp DC to DC converter on there, and then that goes up. You can see right up there is just a 6-position small fuse panel for the DC loads. The only other thing from there is in between this unit and the battery, I made sure I had all the protective stuff that I needed. So I have a T-class fuse. I have breakers that are actually mount from in between the unit and the battery pack as well. While the battery does have its own breaker and fuse on it, you want to be putting a T-class fuse when you're really getting to high amperage and 48 plus volts. So I've had this up and running for about a week and a half now. Super simple. It kind of looks like a lot of wires here, but there's really not. You have your solar panel input, and then you have your AC input, AC output, and then your battery connection. And that's really it for this unit. Again, the AC output goes to a sub panel, your battery pack just goes to a battery pack, and then I just have a 12-volt system attached onto the side of that. But it's very straightforward, it's very easy install. What took the most amount of time is reading through the manual and understanding all the settings that you want to put into your unit. And it's going to change a little bit based on what your needs are. Like I said before, you can run this just as a UPS for a house. If you want your security system, you have a freezer chest, certain loads or certain breakers that you want in your house, you can put on a sub panel and you can run direct through this. So this will run on the grid, normal, and it'll make sure your batteries are constantly topped off. And you don't need solar panels at all for that. It'll just use the grid to make sure your batteries are fully charged. And if the power ever does go out, your main panel will lose power, and this will switch to your battery, and then it'll continue powering your sub panel if that's the way you want to go. And the other way to run this is for a more off-grid system, which is kind of what I have here. This really does not use the grid except for if there's not enough solar and my battery is completely depleted, then it will use the grid power to charge up the battery. But other than that, this is a complete standalone system. With 6,000 watt split phase, you can power quite a lot of things with it, and depending on how big your battery bank is, you can power those things for a while. Then if you really wanted to be completely off-grid, that AC input, you can very easily just run that to a receptacle for a generator plug-in, so that you can start a generator and you can hook that directly in as the AC input, and you can use that to charge your batteries. So there's a lot of cool different capabilities of this. Like I said, take the time, read through that manual. I've probably read through it 3 times and probably understood it once. But that's kind of part of it, and understanding all the different settings, all the different parameters. Whatever battery pack you're using, those are going to be different, so you're going to want to program this a little different for that battery pack. So if you want to see kind of how I have it set up and all my settings, I'm not going to go through them now because this video will take way too long, but let me know in the comment section down below. So that's my new solar system. Like I said, it's very easy to install, and if you got any other questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.